Morning, everybody. I'm Melisa Nielsen with Waldorf Essentials. I wanted to talk today about the 15-year-olds. So we've been doing these 3-year cycles. We did the 3-year-old, then the 6-year-old, and the 9-year-old, and last week we did the 12-year-old. So today we're going to talk about the 15-year-old a bit, how it seems to vary a little bit between boys and girls, at least from what I've seen, and sort of how to walk through this space. And then next week we'll talk about the 18-year-old. Excuse me, I have a little frog in my throat. But today, our focus is really the 15-year-old. And I cannot recommend this book enough. It is called Between Form and Freedom by Betty Staley. We purchased this book the first time before our first one went through. And it really gave us some great insights just on sort of what we were going to be going through. And it was super helpful. So I recommend it to anybody it's great for probably 9 and up, but I think the real meat of it is going to be those teenage years. So I would recommend maybe by 12 and up at the latest. So I think it is a great read. There's a great part in the beginning of it on temperaments, but hopefully you're already working with that a lot. So the 15-year-old, just from contrast, so I've got a phlegmatic son that went through, a melancholy son that went through, a sanguine, melancholy daughter that I've been through so far, that are my personal own. And then I've worked with a lot of families, hundreds of families going through these stages. So the 15-year-old, just to sort of set the stage a little bit, last year, because Ellie's 16 and a half now, so when she was 15, on the night of her 15th birthday, I went to say goodnight to her, and she was in a heap crying on the floor, and I thought, it's your birthday. Why are you crying? What happened? And she just had this, I'm just not old enough to do anything. How is it it's gonna take forever before I'm old enough for my driver's license. I'm just not old enough to do anything. They're very much in this place of, where the 12-year-old is sort of, they're on a high. They're at the end of the childhood. They're that big kid now. They have a lot of confidence. You see this confidence is a little wobbly with the 15-year-old, because especially at 15, because they're not in the United States. I'm not sure what driving age is everywhere else, but in the United States, you can't drive till you're 16, unless you live in Idaho. When we used to live in Idaho, they can drive at 14, but that doesn't translate to any other state generally. So there's these big milestones that start to happen. Dating happens at 16 generally. All of these things that you can't really do until you're 16. And so that was where she was coming from. She was just like beside herself about the fact that she just couldn't do anything yet. And it really sort of encompasses what the feeling is for the whole year. And very much so in yes, I'm really excited that I'm here. Oh, I'm really sad that I'm here. It's very much they need rhythm as much as they did when they were young, mostly because they really need to make sure that even if they want to step out of the rhythm, they need to know that they can come back to it. So they need to know that you're still going to be there. They need to know that that meals are going to be regular. They need to know all of those things because it really helps them with security. So if you have a 15-year-old that's really struggling with behavior, step back and look at that. So anytime that we're having some major struggles with Ellie, a lot of it had to do with, not everything, because they've got this sort of internal angst going on, but a lot of it had to do with, our rhythm has been way off, so let's get that back in order. And because she might be falling apart on the inside, they're struggling with their self-esteem. It's really starting to get rooted now. That's what happens now takes them hugely into their adult life. I mean, much more so. Obviously, all the things through childhood do, but there are memories that they make right now, things that happen right now, that when they're 40 are going to be, still life-changing for them. So whenever we had struggles, I always stood back and was like, okay, wait a minute. We need to get back, make sure our rhythm is spot on. Make sure dinner is always there, that she doesn't always count on that, or that she knows where it's at if we're not home. So she knows that she can get what she needs. So that and I'm communicating with her more. They're definitely not in the child place anymore. They want communication with you. They want household communication with you. They want to know what's going on. They want to know, and it's very hard if you're having any financial difficulties. Don't hide them from your teenager. Don't lay the burden on them, but also don't hide them from your teenager, because you also need them to be aware of what's going on. So if you've got financial difficulties going on, you kind of don't want them bugging you about, $5 here, $5 there, $20 here. So you need to be able to be open and honest and say, this is what the household budget is. Again, don't lay a huge amount on their feet, but give them enough information so that they can make better decisions, make good decisions. You definitely are in a place where you probably want to make sure you have buy-in on menu items and things like that. So I always say to Ellie, hey, is there anything you need from the grocery store this week? Or, hey, if you need something from the grocery store, here's a post-it, will you write it down? Then she doesn't have to say, I need tampons, I need this. She doesn't have to say that in front of her dad and her brother. She can just hand me a list. Or, what things that she really is wanting to eat at the store. And this is a time, too, where you probably, you might be having some battles about food that you're eating. And, even if you've raised them really, really well, you might be in this spot now where they're like, hey, but I know there's McDonald's down the street. I want to go check it out. I can use my feet and walk there. And so you might be having more discussions, more battle type situations when it comes to food than you ever have. And my suggestion for that, you can't keep them away from everything. What you can do is ask them, so how are you feeling now? They might go, oh, I just ate a Big Mac. I feel awesome. You want to help them balance, but you also can't be in the place of, you can't ever do that. That's awful. You're ruining everything that I've given you your whole life. You just can't be in that place. They have to come to some of that on their own. And some of them, I look at my 3 that have already gone through it. Some of them have been like, yeah, because I feel crappy. Yeah, I don't want to eat that again. And others have been like, hoo-hoo, bring it on. I want some French fries. So I think it's really about balancing. It's about, you have to detach. So one of my rules is, if you come and ask me for some money, and you tell me that you're going to go spend it at someplace crappy, I'm not giving it to you. If you babysit for that money, then it's yours, and I've given you that money, or you've earned it from me in some other way. I don't have any say then over what you do with it. But don't come and ask me for money to walk down to the subway. Don't do it, because I won't give it to you. So that's sort of been my rule. That way I can make a detachment about it. So that's just about food issues and struggles. Definitely, like I said, you want to keep your rhythm going. When you've got anger issues and struggles, it's good to step back and look at what their movement is like. Just like when they were young, they really need to move their bodies. So many of them are having body image issues, struggles. They're looking at their bodies and comparing them so much more to adult bodies. And really, it is a time to make sure that they're physically active. So my big boys were doing all sorts of things. They were in scouting, and so they were biking and running and doing all these merit badge sort of things. So that kept them really busy. Eleanor has been in martial arts, and it came at just the right time. She was 14 and almost 15. It came at just the right time. So now that's where her workout is. And she now, even during the summertime right now as we're recording, in the summer, she gets up at 5:30 every morning and goes to work out with her karate buddies, and so it instilled a habit in her, and it's peer driven. It's something that she's really enjoying those peers. So one thing that I just want to say about that too is, you might not be ready for all of that peer driven stuff. So you want to make sure that they've got good head on their shoulders and they're choosing good friends, and that these people, and then you have to be ready for them to really start to make that separation, because you've been getting ready for it. They've been trying to make the separation for the last 3-year cycles. Now they're really starting to separate. They're going to have times where they're extremely close to you and they love you, and they're hugging you, and it's going to feel a lot like for me, it feels a lot like the 9-year change in many ways, except for when they want to be independent, they can be independent now. And not too much. Of course, you don't want to push them out into the world. You definitely want to give them some more space. I definitely think that even if you're in a bigger city, public transportation is probably okay. I definitely think that self-defense is vitally important for boys and for girls, but then I'm thinking especially so for girls. Um, I never worried about Harry. He was 6'2" and big, tall guy. He wasn't like mean or anything like that, but he got mugged anyway. So, you want to make sure that you're making your kids aware. How did he get mugged? When he told me the whole story, I was like, really? You had both your headphones in. You weren't paying attention to what was going on. That's how you get mugged. People come up behind you and they don't think you're paying attention. So obviously, thankfully, he wasn't hurt or anything. But those are lessons that hopefully you don't have to learn. But your teens will have to learn some of them, and so you want to make sure that they are armed with some strength and that they are doing a lot of movement. The movement really cuts the moodiness a lot. So and I one thing I didn't experience with my boys, obviously, but I'm definitely noticing more with Eleanor with her cycle. Oh my goodness. There are days where I'm like, get to the dojo, go work out. You need to go and have that burn off. And I remember those times. Most of us can now, I have struggles remembering a lot of stuff from early childhood. I may have bits and pieces, but I distinctly remember me at 15 and not having a car and feeling like I couldn't get anywhere. But when I had public transit pass, I can remember having that bus pass and riding all over Salt Lake City on the bus. It was my freedom. And I remember having really hard cycles when I was a 15-year-old, and really painful cycles. And so there's hormonal things that are going on that movement can help a ton with. But you want to be there for them and really be open, but also expect that they may not open up to you constantly. You might have times where they're really open with you and times where they're super closed. My boys were much more open with me than Ellie is. Now, Ellie and I have a really good relationship, and she is very open to me. I mean, we have a really good relationship. But I know there's a lot of things she keeps close to her heart. It really doesn't have anything to do with her trust in me. It has everything to do with the fact that she's where she is, and that teenagers need to have some secrets, and that's totally okay. And it's about me keeping my door open and sort of fostering that I love you. Make sure that I say that to her a couple of times a day. I make sure that even if she's not in a great mood, that I'm hugging her. In our house, my request is that she comes to family gatherings so she can at least be in one family prayer a day. So if you aren't a family that prays together, work to have some sort of gathering so that you are touching bases every day. And people say to me, but they're homeschooled, so where are they going? They're going to be wanting more peer interaction at this age. So be prepared for that. Be prepared for them to step away. So, Ellie's 16 and a half now, but when she was 15, she was definitely making that pull away, spending more time with her friends. And it's okay. It's very healthy. You just, like I said, you want to make sure that they're hanging out with good people. If they're not hanging out with good people, that's a real struggle. It's a real struggle because you don't want to say you can't be with those people. You might want to say that, but it's a real struggle to be able to pull them away. So I think a lot about my own childhood, how I was at 15, who I was hanging out with, and we weren't incredibly overly religious when I was a child, but my mom had instilled enough in me that I knew I should pick good friends. I didn't always pick good friends. I had some friends I got in trouble with, but overall, my friends were good people and good kids. And so overall, she wasn't really worrying about me. People ask about the next step, like what about sex at this age? What do we talk about? In our home, we're really open about the fact that we want that to be saved. That's a special thing. So we talk about it often. I think you should talk about it often, especially if your 15-year-old has a girlfriend or a boyfriend. You want to be very open about it. Hopefully you've had family values discussions all of these years, and so they kind of know where you stand on that. They know how you're feeling about that. If it's a religious thing, you want to make sure that they are that they're feeling it, because It's one thing to dictate, you can't do this, you can't do this, God said you can't do that. It's something else for them to feel inside that this is something I'm waiting for. So you want to be able to foster that if it's a religious reason, if it's just from a public health standpoint, which I think is a hugely important standpoint too. You want to make sure that they have all the information. You want to make sure that they understand that sex when you're not a fully grown adult is a much more emotionally tasking. It's very hard because you've got all these developing emotions, and they want to think that they know everything and that they have the same emotions that you do, and so it's hard to get them to understand that they don't. But one thing that I think is a huge help is the Waldorf curriculum. Because they're learning that their bodies are changing, especially when you're working on some of the physiology stuff. They're learning that their bodies are changing. So it's not a huge stretch for you to then be teaching them from a place of authority that their emotions now are different than your emotions are, and how emotional growth is, and how things change. And so be open about those conversations. Those are hard conversations. I don't see any parent going, oh yeah, I want to have more sex talks with my 15-year-old. I don't ever say that. It's definitely about being open, but not being afraid to have those conversations. Don't have too many of them. Don't be cramming it down their throat. You want to make sure that you understand as a family, like what it is that your expectations are. Also, I want to impress upon you that you need to listen to your inner self. You need to listen for promptings. You need to listen to the Spirit. You need to be in prayer and meditation about these children as much now as you were when they were 6, 7, 8, 9. You want to be listening to what's going on. Anytime that that she's been tempted or had some struggle that she's been going through, like really icky stuff, I have always had a prompting. Eleanor needs a hug from you right now. Always. And I've listened. The times that I haven't listened are the times that it bit me in the hiney. But I've always listened. I've always, when I listen, I go and I give her a hug. And she says, Mom, thank you so much. I was getting ready to do XYZ, and I know that's not what I should be doing. So I'm going to come and sit with you for a while. It's super simple. My boys, same thing. Listen to that inner voice. Listen to what's going on so that you can know what's going on. The universe is giving you signals. God, the universe, whatever you want to put, name you want to put on source. You are not here alone to raise these children. You have help, heavenly help, divine help. You need to listen to it. And again, like I said, whatever that is for you, archangels, whatever that is for you, spirits, whatever that is for you, listen, because they have guardian angels. If you've been following the Waldorf path, then you've been reading those sorts of things since they were little. Those guardian angels don't go away. So you have access to them. Listen to them. Tap into that. If you're really struggling with your teenager, tap into it and say, what is it that I'm doing wrong? What is it that I can do to support them more? Why am I constantly finding myself frustrated? I would say between 12 and 15, that year of 13, people ask me, they'll send me messages and say, I'm having so many troubles with my 13-year-old daughter. I'm like, 13 is so hard with girls. And it's not even a developmental checkpoint. It's just a hard one. I think that you put that teen after it, and it started getting hard from there. My boys were really easy. But 13 was hard for us. I would say that, I like her a lot now. She's 16 and a half, and she and I have a really good relationship, and we have for probably the last 3 years. 13, though, was really hard. Really hard. There was also the year I had a stroke, and so her world was topsy-turvy. And so there was a lot of, it was more than just rhythm being pulled away. It was, holy crap, what if my mom dies? And so there was a lot wrapped up in that. So if you have tumultuous things going on at 13, then that's going to make that year a lot harder. After that, so the intellect is born at about 14. So there's a lot more that you can discuss, and they're understanding more. They're looking at world events more openly. That's why I really think that when it comes to sort of eating poorly and all of the things that they sort of want to do, hand them some reports, hand them some articles, let them read some things so that they can see. Watch Super Size Me. Super Size Me was a great Yeah, there's some dicey stuff in it, but it was great for seeing somebody that's not you discussing something like that. I found it to be immensely helpful for my boys when they were sort of in that place and understanding, hey, because Morgan Spurlock is cooler than mom. So anyway, I hope this is helpful. We've gotten some great feedback on our other videos. Definitely remember that even though they're sort of budding mini adults, they still need you a lot. They don't need to be left to their own devices. You definitely need to be near them, with them. I still have an open door policy with this age. Doors are open in our house, and doors are unlocked in our house. So, you want to make sure that you still have those things. You're still holding the space at times with them. They can hold the space more on their own. Like if they're babysitting siblings, you can trust them to hold the space. Obviously, they've probably been holding the space. I would say my boys really got to feeling like they could hold the space by 15. My daughter was holding the space at 13. And so it's just about they're different, and it's pretty typical. And then obviously different temperaments are different too. So you might have some boys that can do it at 13 and girls that couldn't. So for sure, but definitely listen to your kids, listen to yourself, and don't ignore promptings and warnings, and be there for them. But don't knock down their door. Don't read diaries. Don't do it. Don't do it. If they have personal stuff, and she's left it on the table before, and I go, oh, is it something for me to read? Oh no, it's not. And she's taken it away. So you want to make sure that you ask. You want to make sure you give them the privacy that they need, but not too much. You want to make sure that that when you are sort of in their business, you're saying, I love you. That's why I'm in your business. What's going on? What can I help you with? Because you want to have that open door. So they're going to go from loving you in one sentence to, I can't believe you're so mean to me in the next sentence. And it's perfectly normal. And all I can say is, buckle up and hang on, because it's a bumpy ride. It's a bumpy ride, but hopefully if you are connected, then in the peace in your house, one of the things that we cultivate is a lot of peace in our house. So it's not just about life doesn't revolve around our daughter. She thinks it does, but life doesn't revolve around her. Sometimes she needs a reminder that it doesn't. All teenagers are like that. My boys were the same way. Definitely, I can remember when Harry was he was about this age, and he was like, I don't want to grow up. Sorry, dude. It's coming. You're just going to have to buckle up too, because it'll be fine. So, it's just about supporting them and really being there for them, and realizing that they still need you. And even if they say they don't, they still need you. They still need you when they're 20. So as I've been recording this, all these notifications are coming up on my phone as I'm recording from my 20-year-old son. So they still need you. They need you. They are, even if they don't want to say that they need you, they do. So you want to be there, and you want to be open, and you need to have your own stuff in order. If you don't have your own stuff in order, and you still have things that are plaguing you from those years, then it's going to be harder for you. So, definitely. And if you need help or you need some support for these years, please drop us a note. We're absolutely happy to help. I'm happy to reflect for you, and help you come to some conclusions on your own. But definitely, Betty Staley's Between Form and Freedom is an excellent book. So I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye now.